Among the most enigmatic artifacts ever unearthed are the crystal skulls. 13 are said to exist, ranging from near-perfect human replicas carved from single blocks of quartz to cruder, smaller versions. The most famous, the Mitchell Hedges skull, discovered allegedly in Belize in the 1920s, displays an optical clarity and precision that modern analysis suggests is baffling. Hewlett-Packard researchers examining it in the 1970s reportedly found no discernible tool marks, concluding that shaping it against the natural crystal axis without shattering would require techniques seemingly unknown even today. Theories surrounding their origin span Mayan or Aztec craftsmanship, Atlantean relics, or even extraterrestrial technology. Proponents claim these objects hum with energy, induce visions, or possess healing properties. Some New Age beliefs position them as cosmic libraries, holding ancient wisdom accessible only to those psychically attuned. Critics, however, point to microscopic tool marks suggesting 19th century European origins, for some, possibly crafted for the antiquities market. Yet the source and manufacturing technique for the most refined examples, like the Mitchell Hedges or British Museum skulls, remain fiercely debated, lacking definitive provenance and defying simple explanations. The controversy deepens when considering the material properties. Rock crystal quartz has a Mohs hardness of 7, making it incredibly difficult to carve with primitive tools. The prismatic nature of quartz means it naturally fractures along specific planes. Carving complex curves, like those on a human skull, against this natural axis is exceptionally challenging. The claim that the Mitchell Hedges skull and its detachable jaw were carved from a single quartz block adds another layer of complexity. If crafted by pre-Columbian cultures, what tools could achieve this? Copper tools, common at the time, are too soft. Stone tools might work, but would likely leave much cruder marks than observed on the finest examples. The absence of microscopic scratches consistent with known carving methods fuels speculation about lost ancient technologies or even non-human origins. Some point to experiments suggesting piezoelectric properties within quartz could allow it to store information or energy, lending a sliver of scientific plausibility to the cosmic library theories. However, rigorous scientific validation remains elusive, leaving the skulls suspended between plausible artifact and impossible object. Shifting from ancient artifacts to modern myths, we encounter the persistent legend of Nazi Germany's Die Glocke, or the bell. Propagated primarily through the writings of Polish military journalist Igor Witkowski, based on alleged interrogations of an SS officer. The story describes a top-secret project under SS General Hans Kammler. Die Glocke was purportedly a metallic bell-shaped device, roughly 9 feet wide and 12 to 15 feet high, housed in a secret facility known as Der Riese, the giant near the Wenceslaus mine in Lower Silesia. According to the accounts, the device required significant electrical power and utilized counter-rotating cylinders filled with a mercury-like substance, codenamed Zerom 525. When activated, it allegedly emitted strong radiation and had bizarre physiological effects on nearby plants and animals, causing tissue crystallization and decay. The purported aim? Anti-gravity propulsion, energy weaponization, or even more outlandish goals like timeline manipulation. Witkowski claims a project vanished along with Kammler himself in the final chaotic days of the war. The physical evidence often cited for Die Glocke includes the aforementioned concrete structure, sometimes called the hinge, which skeptics argue is merely the base of an unfinished industrial cooling tower. However, proponents insist its unusual design and location align with the needs of testing a powerful, potentially hazardous device. The story gains traction from the undeniable reality of advanced and often ethically unconstrained Nazi scientific research, including rocketry's jet aircraft Me-260 and nuclear fission programs. Figures like Hans Kammler were indeed responsible for overseeing crucial secret weapons projects and utilized vast resources, including slave labor. Could a project as audacious as Die Glocke have existed within this framework? Mainstream historians remain highly skeptical, citing the lack of verifiable documents, the reliance on secondhand testimony, and the often sensationalist nature of the claims. There is no definitive proof connecting Kammler's disappearance to Die Glocke. nor any concrete evidence of time-altering or anti-gravity effects. Yet, the narrative persists, fueled by the documented technological ambitions of the Third Reich and the enduring mystique surrounding its most clandestine operations, blurring the line between historical possibility and pure conspiracy theory. Perhaps one of the most startling claims of ancient knowledge involves the Dogon people of Mali, West Africa. French anthropologists Marcel Grial and Germain Dieterlen, who studied the Dogon extensively from the 1930s to the 1950s, reported that Dogon priests possessed extraordinarily detailed knowledge of the Sirius star system. According to Grial's published works, the Dogon knew that Sirius Sigitolo, star of the Sigui, was not a single star but two. They described its companion, Sirius B, Potolo, star of Phonio, named after a tiny grain, as incredibly small, incredibly heavy, and invisible to the naked eye. They accurately stated its orbital period around Sirius A as approximately 50 years and knew it followed an elliptical path. This is astonishing because Sirius B, a white dwarf star, is indeed invisible without telescopes, and its existence and properties were only confirmed by modern astronomy in the 19th and early 20th centuries. How could an isolated tribe, seemingly lacking astronomical instruments, possess such specific information? The Dogon themselves attribute this knowledge to the Nommos, described as amphibious beings who descended from the Sirius system in an arc centuries ago to impart wisdom. This narrative forms the basis of the popular ancient astronaut theory regarding the Dogon, championed by authors like Robert Temple in his book, The Sirius Mystery. Temple argues that extraterrestrial contact is the only plausible explanation for the Dogon's advanced astronomical understanding. However, this interpretation faces significant challenges. Critics like anthropologist Walter van Beek, who studied the Dogon decades after Grial, found little evidence of this deep, serious knowledge among the general Dogon population or even contemporary priests. Van Beek suggested Grial may have misinterpreted myths or inadvertently contaminated Dogon beliefs through leading questions, possibly influenced by astronomical discussions circulating in the 1930s. Others proposed the knowledge could have been acquired from European visitors, missionaries, or astronomers prior to Grial's fieldwork. Furthermore, some details attributed to the Dogon, like a third star in the system or moons around Jupiter, don't align perfectly with modern astronomy, muddying the waters. The Dogon enigma remains a potent example of knowledge, seemingly out of time and place, but its origins, extraterrestrial, misinterpreted, or culturally contaminated, are still debated. Ancient Indian epics like the Mahabharata and Ramayana, along with texts like the Vimanas Shastra, contain fascinating descriptions of flying machines known as Vimanas. These accounts go beyond simple mythical flight. They often detail the construction, propulsion, and capabilities of these aerial vehicles used by gods, heroes, and sometimes demons. The Ramayana describes Ravana's Pushpaka Vimana as a large aerial chariot capable of traveling vast distances at great speed. The Mahabharata mentions Vimanas used in epic battles equipped with powerful weapons. Some texts categorize different types of Vimanas based on their function or era. Descriptions can be surprisingly technical, mentioning materials like specific metals and woods, power sources potentially involving mercury or alchemy, and complex maneuvering capabilities. Could these be mere poetic fancy, or do they reflect a lost technological past? The level of detail has led some researchers, particularly proponents of paleocontact theories, to suggest these texts document actual advanced aircraft witnessed or utilized in antiquity. The Vimanas Shastra, supposedly channeled or rediscovered in the early 20th century by Sabarya Shastri, offers perhaps the most detailed technical specifications. It describes apparatus like the Shakuna Vimana, detailing its construction, electrical systems, and even pilot attire. However, the authenticity and antiquity of the Vimanas Shastra are highly disputed. Aeronautical and mechanical engineering studies conducted by researchers at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, in 1974 concluded that the designs described were largely unfeasible, lacking understanding of basic aerodynamic principles, and the text likely dates to the early 20th century, reflecting contemporary ideas rather than ancient knowledge. Critics argue the descriptions in the epics, while evocative, are ambiguous and likely symbolic representations of divine power or allegorical accounts of warfare, not literal blueprints. The mention of Mercury vortex engines, often cited as evidence of advanced propulsion, lacks scientific basis in known physics. While the concept of ancient flight in India captured in these texts is undeniably captivating, the leap to interpreting them as literal technical manuals for functional aircraft remains controversial, requiring substantial faith over verifiable engineering proof. The Vimanas exist powerfully in scripture, but their transition to historical fact is unproven. The biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah describes a cataclysmic destruction rained down from the heavens, obliterating the cities of the plain, traditionally interpreted as divine wrath manifesting as fire and brimstone, sulfur. Some fringe theories propose a more terrestrial, yet equally devastating explanation: ancient nuclear warfare or a massive cosmic airburst event with nuclear-scale energy release. Proponents point to archaeological sites like Tal el-Hammam in Jordan, proposed by some, though disputed by others, as the location of Sodom. Excavations there have uncovered evidence of a sudden, high-temperature destruction event around 1650 BE. Archaeologists report finding pottery shards with outer surfaces melted into glass, vitrified, indicative of temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Celsius. Building materials show signs of having been subjected to intense heat and pressure waves. Human remains found appear fragmented and disarticulated, suggesting a powerful blast. Could this evidence support a nuclear detonation? While the heat levels are extreme, vitrification can also occur in intense conventional fires or volcanic events. Crucially, definitive isotopic signatures associated with nuclear fission have not been conclusively identified at Tal el-Hammam or other candidate sites. A more scientifically plausible explanation favored by many researchers investigating the Tal el-Hammam findings is a cosmic airburst event, similar to the Tunguska event of 1908, but potentially larger or lower altitude. An exploding meteoroid or comet fragment could generate the required temperatures and shock waves to flatten a city and melt surface materials without leaving the characteristic long-term radioactivity of a nuclear bomb. Such an event could also explain the brimstone as or after occasion described in Genesis. The theory of literal ancient nuclear weapons remains highly speculative, lacking direct evidence. However, the possibility of a natural cataclysm of near-nuclear proportions devastating the region offers a compelling alternative interpretation of the Sodom and Gomorrah narrative, linking ancient texts to tangible, albeit debated, archaeological and geological evidence. The destruction was real, the exact cause remains debated. From skulls potentially holding consciousness to Nazi projects allegedly bending time, from celestial knowledge seemingly gifted to the Dogon to Indian texts describing flying machines and biblical cities obliterated by immense heat, these narratives challenge our linear understanding of history and technological development. While rigorous skepticism is essential, dismissing these accounts outright ignores the persistent questions they raise. The crystal skulls defy easy explanation of their manufacture. The Dogon's knowledge, however acquired, remains anomalous. The Vimana text provides surprisingly technical, if unproven, descriptions. Evidence at sites like Tal el-Hammam points to a genuine, catastrophic event echoing the Sodom legend. Even the Glocke story, though likely exaggerated, taps into the known extremes of Nazi ambition. These aren't just isolated curiosities. They represent recurring themes in human history: the possibility of lost knowledge, advanced ancient capabilities, and connections beyond our conventional understanding. Perhaps the truth lies not in accepting every claim, but in recognizing the gaps in our historical record and the enduring power of mystery to fuel exploration and imagination. What other secrets might antiquity hold?